Chapter 1. The necklace that changed everything. Should have known the moment he walked through the door that my life was about to shatter. The bistro was nearly empty that Tuesday. Evening, just the usual stragglers nursing. Cold coffee and the ghosts of conversations that never quite landed. I'd been working double shifts for 3 weeks straight, my feet screaming in protest against the tile floor, my mind numb from the repetition of orders and fake smiles. The necklace bounced lightly against my collarbone as I moved between tables, a comforting weight I'd grown so accustomed to that I barely remembered it was there. It had been my mother's, or so I'd been told. The truth was, I didn't remember her face. Didn't remember her voice. I'd been 3 when she disappeared, leaving behind only questions. A shoebox of photographs with faces I didn't recognize. And this necklace. A delicate gold chain with a pendant shaped like a rose. Its petals intricately carved. A single ruby nestled at its center. My foster mother, Linda, had given it to me on my 18th birthday with trembling hands and eyes that wouldn't meet mine. She wanted you to have this, she'd whispered. No matter what happened. I'd stopped asking what that meant years ago. The bell above the door chimed, pulling me from my thoughts. I turned, my customer service smile already in place, and felt it freeze on my lips. 3 men entered. The first 2 wore dark suits that probably cost more than my rent, their expressions carved from stone, their eyes scanning the room with the kind of precision that made my survival instincts scream. But it was the 3rd man, the one who walked between them like a king flanked by soldiers, who stole the air from my lungs. He was tall, easily over 6 feet, with broad shoulders that filled his charcoal suit like it had been painted onto him. Dark hair, almost black, swept back from a face that could have been chiseled from marble. All sharp angles and dangerous beauty. But it was his eyes that held me captive. Storm gray and cold as winter steel, they swept across the bistro with an authority that made me feel small and exposed. Power radiated from him like heat from a furnace. Arya, "Table 6?" My manager, Greg, hissed from behind the counter, his voice pitched high with nervousness. He'd gone pale, I realized. Actually pale. My legs moved on autopilot, carrying me toward the booth where the 3 men had settled. The 2 guards, because that's what they had to be, positioned themselves with their backs to the walls, eyes on the exits. The one in the middle, the dangerous one, sat with a casual elegance that somehow made him more intimidating. "Good evening," I managed, my voice steadier than I felt. "Can I get you something to drink?" He didn't look at me. Not at first. He was studying a menu he clearly had no interest in, one finger tapping in slow rhythm against the table. Then, as if pulled by some invisible thread, his gaze lifted and locked onto mine. The world tilted. His eyes weren't just gray. They were layered, storm clouds over steel, over something darker I couldn't name. They traveled across my face with an intensity that felt almost physical, and I had the strangest sensation that he was reading me, cataloging every detail, every secret I'd ever tried to hide. Then his gaze dropped, to my throat, to the necklace. Everything changed. The casual indifference vanished from his expression, replaced by something sharp and almost violent. His entire body went rigid, his hand freezing mid-tap. One of the guards shifted, sensing the change, his hand moving subtly toward his jacket. "Where did you get that?" His voice was low, controlled. But underneath I heard something dangerous coiling. My hand flew to the pendant instinctively, protective. What? He stood so abruptly that his guard actually reached for his weapon. The man was towering over me now, close enough that I could smell his cologne. Something dark and expensive that made my head spin. His eyes were fixed on the necklace with an intensity that bordered on violence. That necklace. Each word was precise, clipped. "Where did you get it?" "It was my mother's," I stammered, taking a step back. My heart was hammering so hard I could feel it in my throat. "Why? What does it—" "Mateo." An elderly woman's voice, trembling and fragile, cut through the tension like a knife. I turned to see a small figure standing near the entrance, flanked by another suited guard. She couldn't have been more than 5 feet tall, dressed in elegant black, her silver hair swept into a neat bun. But it was her face that stopped me, the way every ounce of color had drained from it, the way her hand clutched at her guard's arm for support. She was staring at my necklace. No, she was staring at me, and she was crying. Tears streamed down her weathered cheeks as she took a shaking step forward. "Dio mio," she whispered. "It can't be. After all these years." The dangerous man, Matteo apparently, moved between us instantly, his body a wall of protection. "No, what's wrong?" But the old woman wasn't looking at him. She was looking at me with an expression I couldn't decipher. Shock, grief, hope, all tangled together into something that made my chest ache. "That necklace," she breathed. "I gave that to Isabella on her wedding day. It's been in our family for 4 generations." Her eyes, dark and piercing despite her tears, met mine. "How do you have my daughter-in-law's necklace, child?" The floor seemed to drop out from under me. I don't understand." "My mother? Your mother?" Matteo's voice was deadly quiet now. He turned to face me fully, and the look in his eyes made me want to run. "What was your mother's name?" "I don't know," I whispered. "I was 3 when she disappeared. I don't remember her. I don't remember anything except Isabella," the old woman said softly. "Was that her name?" "Isabella Salvatore." The name hit me like a physical blow. I'd seen it once, scrawled on the back of one of the photographs in that shoebox. A name Linda had refused to explain. Maybe. I don't know. I don't know anything about her except she left me this, and Matteo moved so fast I didn't see it coming. One moment he was 2 feet away, the next his hand was wrapped around my wrist, not painfully, but with absolute control. His thumb pressed against my racing pulse as those storm-gray eyes bored into mine. "That necklace belonged to my mother," he said, his voice soft and more terrifying than if he'd shouted. "She was wearing it the night she was murdered. 23 years ago." The bistro spun around me. "That's impossible. I've had this since I was 3 years old?" His jaw clenched. "The same age my infant sister was when she disappeared the night my mother died. No, this couldn't be happening. This couldn't be real." But the old woman was moving closer now, her wrinkled hands reaching for my face with a tenderness that made my chest crack open. "Look at her eyes, Matteo," she whispered. "Look at her face. She has Isabella's eyes. She has your father's chin. Oh my God," her voice broke. "Oh my God, it's her. It's Lucia." Matteo's grip on my wrist tightened just slightly, and when I looked up at him, I saw something I hadn't expected in those cold, dangerous eyes. Recognition. And beneath it, a rage so deep and devastating it made the air between us electric. "Who are you?" he demanded, his voice barely above a whisper. "And why the hell have you been hiding in plain sight with my dead mother's necklace around your throat while I've spent 23 years hunting for my sister?" I opened my mouth to answer, to deny, to explain, to something. But no words came, because somewhere deep in the locked chambers of my forgotten childhood, a door had just cracked open, and behind it, the truth was waiting to destroy everything. Chapter 2. Blood Doesn't Lie. Apartment had never felt smaller than it did with Matteo Salvatore standing in the middle of my living room. I hadn't wanted to bring them here. Not him. Not his grandmother. Not the 2 silent guards who'd positioned themselves by my door like sentinels. But what choice did I have? The bistro had felt too exposed, too public for whatever nightmare I'd just stumbled into. "This is where you live?" Matteo's voice carried no judgment, just observation. But I still felt defensive as his eyes swept over my studio apartment, the futon that doubled as my bed, the kitchenette with its chipped countertop, the single window overlooking the alley behind the Chinese restaurant. "Not all of us grew up in mansions," I shot back, hugging my arms around myself. The necklace felt heavy now, burning against my skin. His grandmother, she'd introduced herself as Viviana Salvatore, sat perched on my only chair, her sharp eyes tracking my every movement. Despite her tears at the bistro, she seemed composed now, almost regal in her assessment of me. "Sit down, child," she said gently. "Please, this must be overwhelming. The understatement of the century." I remained standing, my back against the wall, kneading the solid surface behind me. "You need to tell me what's going on." Right now, because I don't know anything about a sister or a murder or... Show me your left shoulder blade, Matteo interrupted. I blinked. Excuse me? My sister had a birthmark. Right here. He touched his own back, indicating the spot. Shaped like a crescent moon. If you're really Lucia Salvatore, you'll have it. Fear and defiance warred in my chest. I'm not taking off my shirt for you. Then lift your sleeve, or I can have one of my men call in a doctor to examine you. His voice was flat, emotionless. Your choice. The casual threat in his words made my skin prickle. This man, this beautiful, terrifying man, wasn't making requests. He was telling me how this would go. Matteo, Viviana chided softly. Gentlezza, gentleness. But there was nothing gentle about the way he looked at me. His eyes held the weight of 23 years of searching, of grief, of rage that had nowhere to go. And now, apparently, it had found a target. My hands trembled as I reached for the collar of my shirt. I turned, giving them my back, and pulled the fabric down just enough to expose my left shoulder blade. The silence that followed was deafening. Cristo, Matteo breathed. I'd always hated that birthmark. A crescent-shaped mark, darker than the rest of my skin, sitting just above my shoulder blade where I could never quite see it, but everyone else could. Kids in foster care had called it my moon kiss. Linda had called it distinctive. I called it a reminder that I'd never belonged anywhere. I yanked my shirt back into place and spun around to find Matteo standing closer than he'd been before, his face a mask of barely controlled emotion. His hands were clenched into fists at his sides. Say something, I demanded, my voice breaking. Instead, he turned to one of his guards. Call Lorenzo. Tell him to bring everything. Blood work equipment, DNA testing, all of it. I want answers tonight. Wait, what? DNA testing? Panic flared hot in my chest. You can't just... Yes, I can. He turned those storm-gray eyes back on me. And you're going to cooperate. Because if you really are my sister, then you've been missing for 23 years. And if you're not... His voice dropped to something deadly soft. Then you're part of the con that destroyed my family. And trust me, little girl, you don't want to know what I do to people who try to play me. I'm not playing anyone. The words burst out of me. I don't know who you are. I don't know anything about your family or your sister or any of this. I'm just me, Arya Mitchell. Foster kid. Waitress. Nobody. Arya isn't your real name, Viviana said quietly. I turned to her, feeling like the world was dissolving beneath my feet. Yes, it is. It's the only name I've ever had. No, child. She stood, moving toward me with slow, careful steps. Your name is Lucia Elena Salvatore. You were born on March 19th, 23 years ago in our family home in Tuscany. You had your father's eyes and your mother's smile. Her voice cracked. And on the night of your first birthday, someone took you from your crib while your mother bled out on the floor trying to protect you. The room spun. I reached for something to steady myself and found the wall. This is crazy. This is your foster mother, Matteo interrupted. Linda Mitchell. Where is she? Dead. The word came out hollow. Cancer. 2 years ago. Something flickered in his expression. Frustration, maybe, or calculation. Convenient. Anger cut through my fear. Watching someone die of cancer is convenient? For whoever placed you with her, yes. He began to pace, his movements predatory. Because dead women don't answer questions. Placed me? She adopted me from the state. I saw the papers. Papers can be forged. He stopped pacing, pinning me with his gaze. Identities can be manufactured. A 3-year-old child doesn't remember enough to contradict the story she's told. But why? I asked desperately. Why would anyone do that? Because you're worth $50 million, Lucia. The words hit me like a punch to the gut. What? Viviana's face softened with sadness. Your father, our Alessandro, left a trust for both his children. When he died 5 years ago, he left everything to his heirs. Matteo received his inheritance. But yours, she gestured helplessly. Yours has been sitting in trust, waiting. $50 million, earning interest for 23 years. It belongs to Lucia Salvatore. To you, I couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. I don't want $50 million. I don't want any of this. I just want... The knock at the door made everyone in the room go rigid. One of the guards had his weapon drawn before I even registered the sound. Expecting someone? Mateo's voice was cold. No, Another knock. Harder. More insistent. Aria Mitchell? A male voice called through the door. This is Detective Marcus Chen. We need to talk about Linda Mitchell's death. We have some questions about inconsistencies in your adoption records. My blood turned to ice. Mateo moved like a viper, crossing the room in 3 strides and gripping my arm. How long have the police been asking questions? They haven't. This is the first time. I swear. His eyes searched mine, looking for the lie. Whatever he saw there made his jaw clench. Either someone's been watching you, waiting for us to make contact, or this is the world's worst coincidence. He turned to his guards. Antonio, front door. Carlo, check the fire escape. Ms. Mitchell? The detective knocked again. I know you're home. Your neighbor saw you come in 20 minutes ago. Mateo's hand moved to the gun I suddenly realized was holstered under his jacket. Did Linda ever tell you anything about your past? Anything at all? Just that my mother loved me. That she wanted me to have the necklace. That's all. She was lying. His voice was flat with certainty. The question is whether she was protecting you or using you. The door handle rattled. Ms. Mitchell, I'm going to need you to open this door. Now. Viviana stood, her small frame radiating a strength that didn't match her age. Mateo, get her out of here. If the police are involved, someone's making a move. She's not safe. I can't just leave with you, I hissed. I don't even know you. Mateo stepped so close I could feel the heat radiating from him. Listen to me very carefully, Aria, or Lucia, or whoever the hell you are. 3 hours ago you were nobody, a waitress living paycheck to paycheck. Now you're either my dead sister come back to life, or you're baiting a trap someone set 23 years ago. His hand came up, his fingers brushing the necklace at my throat, and I shivered. Either way, the moment we walked into that bistro, you became the most valuable and most dangerous person in this city. Ms. Mitchell, I'm coming in. The sound of keys in the lock made my heart stop. Mateo's hand closed around mine, solid and certain. So you have a choice. You can stay here and answer their questions with no idea what game you're playing, or you can come with me and find out why someone wanted my mother dead and her daughter erased. His storm gray eyes held mine, and I saw it again, that rage, that grief, that desperate need for answers that I'd carried my whole life too. What's it going to be? The door opened, and I made the choice that would either save my life or destroy it. I ran. Chapter 3. Into his world. The black Mercedes tore through the city streets like a bullet, and I was trapped inside it with a man who might be my brother or my captor. I still wasn't sure which. The detective's shouts had faded. Behind us, as Mateo's guards hustled me down the fire, escape with professional efficiency. Now I sat pressed against the leather seat, my heart hammering, watching the familiar landscape of my life blur past the tinted windows. Where are we going? My voice sounded small even to my own ears. Somewhere safe. Mateo sat beside me, his phone pressed to his ear, speaking rapid Italian I couldn't follow. The language sounded both foreign and somehow achingly familiar, like a song I'd forgotten I knew. Viviana was in a separate car behind us. I'd seen her being ushered into another black Mercedes before we'd sped away. The whole operation had been military precise, like they'd done this 1,000 times before. Maybe they had. You can't just kidnap me, I said, trying to sound braver than I felt. Mateo ended his call and turned those steel-gray eyes on me. Kidnap? You came willingly. I asked, you chose. Remember? I chose because a detective was breaking down my door. A detective who showed up at your apartment exactly 43 minutes after we did. Quite a coincidence. He leaned back, his expensive suit barely wrinkled despite our dramatic exit. Tell me, Aria, in your entire life, have the police ever come asking about your adoption records? No, and Linda never mentioned anything unusual? No strangers watching the house? No mysterious payments or threats? No. I gripped the necklace, needing its familiar weight. She was just normal. A retired teacher who took in foster kids. She wasn't part of some conspiracy. Then explain the necklace. His voice was quiet, but sharp as a blade. Explain how you ended up with the one piece of jewelry my mother was wearing the night she died. The one thing that disappeared from the crime scene. I had no answer for that. The silence stretched between us, heavy with implications I didn't want to consider. The car turned off the main roads, gliding through a neighborhood I'd never been to. All high gates and manicured hedges, houses that looked more like estates. We pulled up to iron gates that opened automatically, revealing a driveway lined with sculpted trees. The mansion at the end of that driveway stole my breath. It was modern and classical at once. All white stone and tall windows that glowed with warm light. It looked like something from a magazine, the kind of place where people like me only existed to clean or serve. "This is where you live," I whispered. "This is where we live," he corrected. "If the DNA test confirms what I already know." The car stopped under a portico. Mateo's door opened before I could respond, one of his guards waiting with practiced patience. I climbed out on shaking legs, my waitress uniform feeling suddenly shabby against the opulence surrounding me. Viviana's car pulled up behind ours. She emerged looking small but indomitable, immediately moving to my side. "Come, child. Let's get you settled." "I'm not settling anywhere until someone explains what the hell is happening." "Language," Viviana chided gently, but there was approval in her eyes. "You have fire. Good. You'll need it in this family." A man in a white coat was waiting in the foyer, which was larger than my entire apartment, with marble floors and a chandelier that probably cost more than I'd earn in a lifetime. He carried a medical bag and wore the professional smile of someone used to discretion. "Dr. Lorenzo Ricci," Mateo introduced. "He'll take your blood sample. DNA results in 6 hours." 6 hours? I backed up a step. DNA tests take weeks. When you're a Salvatore, they take 6 hours. Mateo's tone left no room for argument. I wanted to run. Wanted to demand they take me back to my apartment, my life, my reality. But that detective was probably still there, asking questions I couldn't answer. And beneath the fear, beneath the panic, was something else. Curiosity. What if they were telling the truth? What if I really was Lucia Salvatore? I held out my arm to Dr. Ricci. "Fine. But after this, you give me answers. Real ones." Mateo watched as the doctor swabbed my arm with alcohol, his expression unreadable. "You'll get your answers. I promise." The needle pinch was quick. Dr. Ricci filled several vials with my blood, labeled them with practiced efficiency, and disappeared as smoothly as he'd arrived. "Mateo, the poor girl needs food and rest," Viviana declared. "Not an interrogation. She needs to understand what she's walked into. She needs to not collapse from shock." Viviana's voice carried the authority of a grandmother who'd won every argument that mattered. "Tomorrow, after the results. Tonight we let her breathe," I expected him to argue. Instead, something softened in his expression, just for a moment, when he looked at his grandmother. "All right, tomorrow." Then his eyes found mine. "But you don't leave this house. Not until we know who sent that detective and why." "So I'm a prisoner. You're protected." He stepped closer, and I hated the way my pulse jumped. "There's a difference. Someone killed my mother and took you. They kept you hidden for 23 years. Now we found you, and within an hour, the police show up at your door?" He shook his head. "That's not coincidence. That's someone panicking, and when powerful people panic, they make dangerous decisions." "You're scaring me." "Good. You should be scared." His voice dropped low. "Because whoever took you once won't hesitate to take you again. Or worse." A woman appeared from a side hallway, mid-40s, professionally dressed, with kind eyes and an air of capability. "Mr. Salvatore, the guest room is ready." "Thank you, Maria." Mateo gestured toward the stairs. "She'll show you to your room. Everything you need is there. If you want anything else, ask." I followed Maria up a grand staircase, my hand trailing along a banister so polished I could see my reflection. She led me down a hallway lined with paintings that looked original and expensive, stopping at a door near the end. The bedroom beyond was bigger than my entire apartment. A massive 4-poster bed dominated the space, dressed in ivory linens that probably had a thread count I couldn't pronounce. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked gardens lit by subtle landscape lighting. A door stood open to an ensuite bathroom I could see featured a tub large enough to swim in. "There are clothes in the closet that should fit," Maria said softly. "The bathroom is stocked. If you need anything, there's a phone by the bed. Just press 1 for the kitchen. 2 for housekeeping, 3 for Mr. Salvatore's office." She left before I could respond, the door clicking shut with a finality that made my chest tight. I stood in the center of that beautiful room, still wearing my stained uniform, still smelling like the bistro's kitchen, and felt the full weight of the last 3 hours crash over me. This morning, I'd been nobody. Aria Mitchell, waitress. Orphan. Now I might be Lucia Salvatore, heiress, the lost sister of a mafia boss. I touched the necklace again, and this time, instead of comfort, I felt the weight of its secrets. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out with shaking hands. Unknown number. The text message was simple, chilling. "He's lying to you. Your mother didn't die protecting you. She died because of you. Get out while you still can. A friend." I stared at the words until they blurred. Someone was watching me. Someone knew I was here, and they wanted me to know that everything Matteo had told me was a lie. Chapter 4. Cracks in the armor I didn't sleep. How could I, with that text message burning in my mind like a brand? I'd sat on the edge of that enormous bed for hours, staring at my phone, waiting for another message that never came. Your mother didn't die protecting you. She died because of you. What did that mean? How could a 1-year-old child be responsible for murder? Dawn crept through the windows, painting the room in shades of gray and gold. I'd eventually showered and changed into the clothes Maria mentioned. Expensive jeans that fit perfectly, and a soft cashmere sweater that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Someone had known my size. The thought unsettled me almost as much as the text. A soft knock interrupted my spiraling thoughts. "Come in," I called, expecting Maria. Instead, Matteo entered carrying a tray. He'd changed from his suit into dark jeans and a black Henley that showed off the breadth of his shoulders. His hair was slightly damp, like he'd recently showered. Without the armor of his expensive suit, he looked younger, more human, more dangerous. "You didn't eat last night," he said, setting the tray on the small table by the window. "Coffee, toast, fruit, yogurt," Maria told me. I wasn't hungry. I stayed on the bed, maintaining distance. "Did the DNA results come back?" "No. Another hour, maybe." He poured coffee into a delicate cup, added cream without asking if I wanted it. "But I don't need a test to tell me what I already know. You're her. You're Lucia. How can you be so sure?" He turned, studying me with those storm-gray eyes. "Because you look like my mother. Same bone structure, same mouth, and when you're angry, you get this little line right here." He touched his own forehead between his brows. "Just like she did." Something in my chest cracked at the casual intimacy of his observation. "Tell me about her. About Isabella." He was quiet for a long moment, then moved to the window, his back to me. She was beautiful. Not just physically, though she was stunning, but in the way she moved through the world. Like she carried light with her. His voice softened. She sang when she cooked. Terrible voice, but she didn't care. And she collected antique books, first editions, things most people in our world would have considered a waste of money. "She sounds wonderful." She was. The words came out rougher than intended. She was also supposed to be untouchable. My father made enemies, yes, but there were rules. Families didn't target wives, didn't target children. Whoever killed her broke every code we had. I hugged my knees to my chest. "You never found who did it?" "No." He turned back to me and I saw the rage simmering beneath his careful control. The scene was professional. No witnesses, no evidence, just my mother's body and you missing from your crib. My father spent 5 years and millions of dollars searching. It destroyed him. The not knowing, he paused. He died believing you were dead too. Guilt. Irrational but powerful. Twisted in my gut. "I'm sorry." "Don't be sorry for surviving." His jaw clenched. "Be angry. Be furious. Someone stole your life, Lucia. They took your family, your name, Your birthright. They made you live as someone else while we mourned you? Stop calling me that. I stood, needing movement. I'm not her. I don't remember being her. Memory isn't identity. He stepped closer, and I forced myself not to back away. You can't remember being Lucia, but Aria Mitchell is just a story someone else wrote. A fiction. It's the only truth I have. Then let me give you a new truth. His hand moved, and I thought he might touch me, but he stopped short. Stay. Take the DNA test results. Learn about your real family, and if you still want to walk away after that, I won't stop you. I wanted to believe him, but the text message weighed heavy in my pocket. And what if the DNA test proves I'm not your sister? What then? Something dark flickered in his expression. Then we'll need to have a very different conversation about why you're wearing a dead woman's necklace. A threat. Barely veiled but unmistakable. Before I could respond, the door opened. Viviana entered, moving with more energy than someone her age should possess. The results are here. She held up a manila envelope. Lorenzo just dropped them off. The air in the room shifted, becoming charged with possibility and fear. Mateo took the envelope, but didn't open it immediately. Instead, he looked at me. Last chance to run. I don't run. The lie tasted bitter, but I met his gaze steadily. Open it. He broke the seal, pulled out several pages of medical documentation filled with numbers and terminology I didn't understand. His eyes scanned the text, his expression giving nothing away. The silence stretched. Well, Viviana demanded. Mateo, say something. He lowered the papers slowly, and when he looked at me, I saw something I hadn't seen before in those steel gray eyes. Wonder, 99.9% match. His voice was hoarse. You're my sister, Lucia Elena Salvatore. He turned to Viviana, and I watched his careful control crack. Nonna, she's alive. Lucia's alive. Viviana pressed both hands to her mouth, tears streaming down her weathered cheeks. Grazie a Dio, thank God. I stood frozen, the words echoing in my head. 99.9%. Scientific proof that I wasn't who I thought I was. That Aria Mitchell was indeed just a story, a fiction, a carefully constructed lie. I couldn't finish the sentence. Didn't know what I was trying to say. Mateo crossed the distance between us in 2 strides. And then, before I could process what was happening, he pulled me into his arms. The hug was fierce, almost desperate. I felt him shaking, this powerful, controlled man actually trembling as he held me. I thought you were dead, he whispered against my hair. For 23 years, I thought I'd failed to protect you. I thought you were gone. Something inside me broke. All the walls I'd built, all the careful distance I'd maintained. It shattered. I wrapped my arms around him and held on, crying for reasons I didn't fully understand. For the mother I couldn't remember. For the brother I'd never known I had. For the life that had been stolen from both of us. When we finally pulled apart, Viviana was there, drawing me into her own embrace. She was smaller than me, fragile in my arms, but her grip was iron strong. Welcome home, Lucia, she murmured. Welcome home. Home. A concept I'd never truly understood. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Once, twice, 3 times. I pulled away gently, retrieved it with shaking hands. 3 new messages. All from the same unknown number. DNA tests can be faked. Your brother has killed 17 men. Ask him about Marco De Luca. You have 48 hours to leave the Salvatore house, or you'll learn why your mother really died. This is your only warning. I looked up at Mateo, at his storm gray eyes still wet with tears, at the joy transforming his usually hard features, and I realized I had no idea if I was looking at my savior or my killer. Chapter 5. Dangerous Truths. The name Marco De Luca sat on my tongue like poison, but I couldn't bring myself to say it. Not yet. Not while Mateo looked at me with such raw relief, like I was the answer to 23 years of prayers. You should rest, he said softly, mistaking my silence for exhaustion. This is a lot to process. I need air. The words came out sharper than intended. A walk, something. The gardens are secure. Viviana touched my arm gently. I'll show you. I followed her downstairs and through glass doors that opened onto grounds that looked professionally landscaped. Dawn had fully broken now, painting everything in soft gold light. A stone path wound between rose bushes and sculpted hedges, leading to a fountain where water danced in the morning breeze. You're frightened, Viviana observed. Not a question, wouldn't you be? Oh, child, I've been frightened every day for 23 years. She settled onto a marble bench near the fountain, patting the space beside her. Sit, let an old woman share some truth. I sat, keeping my phone clutched in my hand like a lifeline. Mateo was 13 when you disappeared, Viviana began. Old enough to remember everything, young enough to blame himself. He became obsessed with finding you, spent his teenage years learning to fight, to investigate, to hunt. His father tried to stop him, tried to make him accept you were gone, but Mateo... She shook her head fondly. He has Isabella's stubbornness. The text messages say he's a killer. If my bluntness surprised her, she didn't show it. Yes, he is. The confirmation should have terrified me. Instead, I felt oddly numb. 17 men, at least. Viviana's voice remained steady, though I suspect the number is higher. Our family, we are not innocent people, Lucia. Your father built an empire that required violence to protect. Mateo inherited that empire and all its darkness. And you're okay with that? I'm realistic about it. She turned those sharp, dark eyes on me. The world you were born into isn't the world of normal people. We have different rules, different necessities. Mateo has killed, yes, but he's also protected hundreds of lives, kept our family businesses legitimate, prevented wars between families that would have left bodies in the streets. I thought of the text messages. Your mother died because of you. What about my mother? How did she really die? Viviana's expression tightened with pain. Isabella was shot 3 times in your nursery. The coroner said death was instant. She didn't suffer. She was found lying across your empty crib, as if she'd been trying to protect it. But I wasn't there. No. You were already gone. She paused. The prevailing theory was that she surprised the kidnappers, tried to stop them. Mateo believes she fought back, giving you time to be taken alive rather than... She couldn't finish. Rather than killed, like she'd been. Someone wants me to believe Mateo is lying to me, I said quietly, that the DNA test was faked. That I'm in danger here, may I see? I hesitated, then handed her my phone. She read the messages with a calm I didn't feel, her expression revealing nothing. This is interesting, she finally said. Interesting? Someone's threatening me. Someone's trying to manipulate you. She returned the phone. These messages are designed to create doubt, to separate you from the one person who can actually protect you. It's quite clever, actually. Or they're telling the truth. Lucia, look at me. She waited until I met her eyes. If Mateo wanted to harm you, you'd already be dead. He's had multiple opportunities. Instead, he's welcomed you into his home, proven your identity through legitimate testing, and shown you more emotion than he's displayed in years. Her wrinkled hand covered mine. I know you have no reason to trust us, but ask yourself, who benefits from you running? Not us. We've wanted you home since the day you disappeared. Then who sent these messages? That, she admitted, is the question that keeps me awake at night. Footsteps on the path made us both turn. Mateo approached with a tablet in hand, his earlier emotion locked away behind his usual mask of control. But I noticed details now that I hadn't before. The way his eyes scanned the perimeter before he focused on us. The slight bulge under his jacket that meant he was armed. The tension in his shoulders that never quite eased. A man always expecting danger. We need to talk, he said. Both of you. Inside. The study he led us to was all dark wood and leather, with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves and a desk that looked like it had cost more than a car. He pulled up security footage on the tablet. This is from last night. The camera across from your apartment building. I watched the grainy footage show me leaving with Mateo's men. Moments later, a figure appeared, dressed in business casual, definitely not in uniform. He picked the lock on my apartment door with practiced ease, disappeared inside, emerged 12 minutes later carrying a box. That's not a detective, I whispered. No. He's a cleaner. Matteo zoomed in on the man's face. Works for the Rossi family. They specialize in evidence manipulation, false identities, witness intimidation. The Rossi family. Another piece of this dark puzzle. Why would they target me? Because $50 million is a compelling motive. He pulled up another image, a financial document showing the trust fund Viviana had mentioned. If you're declared dead, that money goes to your next of kin. With my father gone, that's me. If I'm declared dead, it goes to Viviana. If we're all dead, he paused, it escates to the state after 7 years of inactivity. Or, Viviana added grimly, it can be claimed by someone with false documentation proving they're the rightful heir. My head spun. You think someone's been planning this? For 23 years? I think someone took you that night planning to use you eventually. Linda Mitchell was probably paid to raise you, keep you hidden but alive. Then when my father died 5 years ago, the timeline activated. Matteo's voice was clinical, detached. They've been waiting for the right moment to either eliminate you permanently or use your identity to access the trust. And me showing up with the necklace forced their hand. He locked eyes with me. Whoever sent those text messages needs you to leave this house, Lucia. They need you vulnerable, isolated, easier to control or kill. That's why they're trying to make you doubt me. I pulled out my phone, showed him the messages, watched his expression darken as he read. Marco DeLuca, he said quietly. You want to know about him? Yes. He was silent for a long moment, warring with himself. Then, Marco DeLuca was my father's business partner, like a brother to him. After my mother died and you disappeared, Marco promised to help find you. He spent 6 months pretending to search, his hands clenched into fists. Then I found proof he'd hired the hit, that he'd orchestrated everything. The murder, the kidnapping, all of it. My breath caught. Why? Power. Control. Marco wanted my father broken, easy to manipulate. It worked. After losing you and my mother, my father was never the same. He made bad deals, trusted the wrong people. Marco positioned himself to take over everything. Matteo's voice went cold. When I turned 18, I challenged him, demanded proof of his innocence or a confession. He laughed in my face. What did you do? His storm gray eyes met mine, and I saw the truth before he spoke. I killed him. With my own hands. It took 3 days. The garden seemed very far away now. This beautiful house with its marble and crystal. It was just a pretty cage holding monsters, and I might be related to the biggest monster of all. So the messages are right, I whispered. You are a killer. Yes. No apology, no justification. Just brutal honesty. And I'm supposed to trust you? No. He moved closer, and I hated that I didn't back away. You're supposed to survive. Trust can come later if it comes at all. But right now, Lucia, those messages prove one thing. Someone out there is very afraid of us figuring out the truth together. His hand rose, fingers brushing my cheek so gently it made my chest ache. So yes, I'm a killer. I've done terrible things, but I've also spent 23 years trying to avenge my mother and find my sister. And now that I have you back, I will burn this entire city to the ground before I let anyone take you away again. The vow should have frightened me. Instead, God help me, it made me feel safe. My phone buzzed. New message. Final warning. Leave tonight or learn what happens to Salvatores who don't listen. Ask your brother about the fire. A friend, I showed it to Matteo. Watched his face go white. What fire? I demanded. His answer came out barely above a whisper. The one that killed your mother wasn't a shooting. It was a cover-up. He looked at me, and I saw true fear in his eyes for the first time. My mother burned to death, Lucia. And only 3 people knew that truth. Who? Me, Nonna, and whoever set the fire. Chapter 6. Smoke and mirrors. The words hung between us like smoke, choking and impossible to escape. You lied to me. My voice was shaking. You said she was shot, that it was quick, that she didn't suffer. I said the coroner's report listed gunshot wounds, Matteo corrected, his jaw tight, because that's what the official report says. The fire destroyed most of the evidence. The bullets were the coroner's conclusion based on what remained. But you know differently. I was there. The confession tore out of him. I was 13 years old and I was there. I heard her screaming. Viviana made a small, wounded sound. Mateo, no. She needs to know, Nonna. All of it. He turned to me, and the carefully controlled mask he wore cracked open, showing me the broken boy underneath. I was supposed to be at a friend's house that night. I snuck home early. I wanted to see you, my baby sister. I'd been jealous when you were born, but by then I'd started to love you. I wanted to check on you before bed like I always did. His hands were trembling. I'd never seen him anything less than perfectly composed, but now he looked like he might shatter. I came in through the side entrance. That's the only reason I survived. The explosion went off in the east wing, your nursery. By the time I reached the corridor, it was already an inferno. His eyes went distant, lost in memory. I heard my mother screaming your name, over and over. Lucia, Lucia, Lucia. She was trapped behind the flames. Oh God. The necklace felt heavy as an anchor around my throat. I tried to reach her, burned my hands trying to break through. He held up his palms, and for the first time I noticed the faint scars there, shiny and old. My father's men pulled me out. By the time the fire department arrived, the entire east wing had collapsed. We found her body in what remained of your nursery. The heat had been so intense that... He stopped, swallowed hard. The coroner couldn't determine the exact cause of death, so he listed the most obvious answer: gunshots. Why lie about it? I asked. Why hide the truth? Viviana answered, her voice heavy with old grief. Because arson is different than a shooting. A shooting could be a rival family, a business dispute, something we understood. But burning a woman alive in her own home, with her baby? That's personal. That's madness. And it meant whoever did it was still out there, possibly still watching. We told everyone the official story, Mateo continued. Made it seem like we believed it. Hoped the real killer would get comfortable, make a mistake. His eyes hardened. They never did. My mind raced, trying to piece together impossible puzzles. But Marco DeLuca, you said he confessed. He confessed to hiring someone to grab you and make it look like a kidnapping gone wrong. He claimed the shooter got overzealous, that killing my mother wasn't part of the plan. Mateo's voice went flat. He never mentioned a fire, and when I questioned him, he died still swearing he had nothing to do with it. So there are two crimes, I said slowly. The kidnapping Marco arranged, and the fire that someone else set. That's been our theory for years. Viviana looked older suddenly, worn down by decades of carrying this secret. Two separate attacks, same night. Possibly coordinated, possibly just terrible timing. Or possibly Marco lied about not setting the fire. I was thinking out loud now. Maybe that's why he died before confessing, because he knew what would happen if you discovered he'd burned your mother alive. Mateo's expression shifted, becoming thoughtful. I never considered that. I was so focused on his admission about the kidnapping that I believed him about the fire. My phone buzzed again. We all froze, smart girl. Keep asking questions, but the answers are worse than you imagine. Check the property records for 47 Oleander Avenue, dated 3 months after the fire. A friend, how are they doing this? I demanded. How do they know what we're talking about? Mateo moved fast, grabbing my phone and removing the battery in seconds. Then he started searching the room with military efficiency, checking lamps, picture frames, every possible hiding spot for surveillance equipment. They either bugged this room, or they have someone inside the house, he said grimly. Carlo, sweep every room. Antonio, get me complete background checks on every staff member hired in the last 6 months. The guards I'd barely noticed standing by the door sprang into action. Oleander Avenue, Viviana murmured. Why do I know that address? I was already moving to Mateo's computer, pulling up property records on the city's website. My hands shook as I typed. The page loaded slowly, each second stretching like hours. Then I saw it. Oh my God. The property record showed a small house purchased 3 months after the fire. Buyer: Mitchell Holdings, LLC. Owner of record: Linda Mitchell, my foster mother. She bought a house 3 months after I was kidnapped, I whispered. With what money? She was a retired teacher. She lived on Social Security and whatever the state gave her for foster care. Mateo was reading over my shoulder now, his body tense against mine. "Click on the LLC, see who owns it." I did. The corporate filings loaded, showing a labyrinth of shell companies and holding corporations, each one leading to another. But at the end of the trail, buried under layers of legal obfuscation, was a name: Marco DeLuca. "He paid her," I said, my voice hollow. "Marco paid Linda to take me. She wasn't some random foster mother. She was part of it." The betrayal cut deeper than any knife could. Linda, who'd brushed my hair and made me breakfast, who'd helped me with homework and cheered at my high school graduation, who'd held my hand while cancer ate her alive and whispered that my mother had loved me. All of it had been a lie, a performance, a job. "I'm sorry," Mateo said quietly. His hand rested on my shoulder, warm and solid. "I know what it's like to discover someone you loved was playing a role. Did she ever care about me at all? Or was I just a paycheck? I don't know." His honesty hurt worse than a comforting lie would have. "But we need to find out who's sending these messages. Because they're right. The answers are getting worse." A phone rang. Not mine, but one of the secure lines on Mateo's desk. He answered, listened, his expression growing darker with each second. "When?" A pause. "How many?" Another pause. "Lock down the house. Nobody in or out." He hung up. And when he looked at me, I saw something I'd never seen before in those storm-gray eyes. Fear. "What happened?" Viviana demanded. "Someone just tried to access Lucia's trust fund, submitted papers claiming to be her legal guardian, with documentation proving she's mentally incompetent and has been in their care for the past 23 years. His jaw clenched. "The papers are signed by Dr. Leonard Mitchell." "Leonard Mitchell," I repeated. "Linda's brother. I met him twice when I was a kid. He was a psychiatrist or something. He still is. And he just submitted a petition to have you declared legally incompetent so he can control your inheritance." Mateo's hands curled into fists. "Which means either he's working with our mysterious friend, or he is our mysterious friend." "Where is he?" I asked. "That's the problem." Mateo's voice was grim. "He disappeared from his clinic 4 hours ago. No one knows where he is. The lights went out. All of them. Simultaneously. Plunging us into darkness." "Don't move," Mateo commanded. I heard him moving, heard the whisper of metal as he drew his weapon. "Carlo? Antonio?" No response. "The backup generators should have kicked in," Viviana said, her voice steady despite the situation. "They should have." But we remained in darkness, the only light coming from the morning sun through the windows, which suddenly seemed far too exposed. A sound from downstairs. Breaking glass. "Multiple entry points. They're in the house," Mateo said. His hand found mine in the darkness, pulling me toward him. "Stay behind me. Move when I move. Nonna, the safe room, now. I'm not leaving you. Now." More sounds, footsteps, professional, coordinated. This wasn't a simple break-in. This was a tactical assault. "How many exits are there?" I whispered. "Too many, and they're all covered." Mateo's voice was calm, deadly. "We're going to have to fight our way out." "I don't know how to fight." "Then you're going to learn fast." He pressed something cold and metal into my hand. "A gun. Safety's off. Point and shoot. Don't hesitate." The study door exploded inward, and standing in the doorway, backlit by emergency lights in the hallway, was a figure I recognized from the security footage. The man who'd broken into my apartment. But he wasn't alone. Behind him, being dragged by 2 armed men, was Detective Chen, the same detective who'd knocked on my door last night. His face was bloodied, his hands zip-tied. "Ms. Salvatore," the lead man said, his voice pleasant despite the violence he represented. "Or is it Ms. Mitchell? I can never remember. Dr. Mitchell sends his regards. He'd like you to come with us. He has some questions about your mother's necklace." Mateo raised his gun. "Over my dead body," the man smiled. "If you insist." And then the world exploded into violence. Chapter 7. Blood in the water. The first gunshot shattered the morning air. An instinct, some buried survival mechanism I didn't know I possessed, threw me to the floor. Mateo moved like liquid death. 1 shot, and the lead man dropped. 2 more, and the guards holding Detective Chen fell. But more were pouring in from the hallway, professionals who knew their business. "Go," Mateo roared at me. "Viviana, take her to the safe room." But Viviana had already moved, grabbing my arm with surprising strength and pulling me toward what looked like a solid bookshelf. Her fingers found a hidden switch, and the entire section swung inward, revealing a steel door beyond. Gunfire erupted behind us, sharp cracks that made my ears ring. I caught a glimpse of Mateo taking cover behind his desk, returning fire with cold precision. Carlo had appeared from somewhere, flanking the attackers. Bodies were falling, so much blood. "Lucia, come." Viviana's command cut through my shock. I stumbled after her into darkness, and the bookshelf swung shut behind us with a hydraulic hiss. The steel door ahead required a code and retinal scan. Viviana completed both with shaking hands, and then we were through, into a room that looked like something from a spy thriller. Monitors lined one wall, showing security feeds from every angle of the house. I watched the firefight continuing in the study, Mateo and Carlo moving like they'd done this 1,000 times before, professional and brutal. But more attackers were coming. Too many. "He's going to die," I whispered. "He's going to win." Viviana's voice held absolute certainty. "This is not the first time someone has attacked a Salvatore house. It won't be the last. Mateo has trained for this his entire life. Against 20 armed men? Against worse." She was pulling weapons from a cabinet, more guns, ammunition, something that looked like it might be a grenade. "Now watch the screens. Learn the layout, because if they get past Mateo and Carlo, we'll need to know where they're coming from." My hand still held the gun Mateo had given me. I stared at it, this small piece of metal that could end lives. I'd never held a weapon before, never wanted to, but watching those screens, seeing the violence unfolding throughout the house, I understood something fundamental. This was my world now, whether I wanted it or not. There. I pointed at one of the monitors showing the garden entrance. 3 more coming in from the south. Viviana pressed a button. Immediately, hidden defenses activated, barriers sliding into place, locking systems engaging. On the screen, one of the attackers triggered something and suddenly the garden erupted in a flash of light and sound. "Claymore mine," Viviana explained calmly. "Your grandfather installed them after your mother died. We've never had to use them before." The attackers who'd survived the blast retreated, regrouping. Good. That bought us time. Movement on another screen caught my attention. The kitchen. Someone was creeping in through the service entrance, alone, moving differently than the tactical team. More careful, more deliberate. "Who is that?" I asked. Viviana leaned closer, squinting at the screen. Then she went very still. "That's Leonard Mitchell." Dr. Mitchell moved through the kitchen like he knew exactly where he was going. He wasn't armed, at least not visibly, but something about his posture made my skin crawl. He stopped at the kitchen island, pulled something from his pocket. A phone, my phone, the battery I'd seen Mateo remove. Somehow Mitchell had it. He was putting it back together, powering it up. "What's he doing?" I breathed, then I saw it. On my phone screen, visible on the security feed, was a blueprint of this house, including the safe room location. "Oh no." The words came out strangled. "He knows where we are. He's had access to my phone this whole time. The messages, they weren't warnings. They were tracking." Viviana was already moving, pulling me toward another door I hadn't noticed. The safe room has a secondary exit. Mateo insisted on it after, well, it doesn't matter. "We need to move, now." "But the detective, is bait or a plant or already dead? We can't help him." Her small hand gripped mine with iron strength. "Lucia, listen to me. Your brother is fighting to keep you alive. Don't make his sacrifice meaningless by playing hero." The word sacrifice hit me like a fist. On the main screen, I could see Mateo taking fire from 3 directions now. He was bleeding from a shoulder wound, his movements just slightly slower than before. He was going to die, buying us time to escape. "No." I pulled away from Viviana. "No, I'm not running while he dies for me. You don't know how to fight." "Then I'll learn fast." I echoed his own words back at her. "You said this is my world now, that I'm a Salvatore. Prove it. Show me how to not be useless." Something shifted in Viviana's expression. Pride, maybe, mixed with grief. "You have Isabella's fire. She opened a different cabinet, pulled out body armor. Put this on. Stay behind me. Do exactly as I say. You're going to fight? Child, I've been a Salvatore longer than you've been alive. She checked the magazine on a sleek pistol with practiced ease. You think I've survived this long by hiding? We armored up in 30 seconds. Viviana moved to a panel, pressed a sequence that made the monitors shift to show attack vectors and tactical overlays. The main force is concentrated on the study. They want Matteo neutralized first. That means the secondary routes are less defended. What's your plan? We flank them. There's an access corridor that runs behind the east wing. It'll put us behind their position. She met my eyes. When I tell you to shoot, you shoot. No hesitation, no mercy. These men came here to kill us. We owe them nothing. My heart hammered against my ribs, but I nodded. We exited through the secondary door into a narrow corridor I never would have known existed. The sounds of gunfire were muted here, filtered through layers of reinforced walls. Viviana moved with surprising speed and surety, checking corners, weapon always ready. We emerged near the study's rear entrance. Through the partially open door, I could see the chaos inside. Matteo was pinned down, taking fire from attackers using the doorway as cover. His shoulder was bleeding badly now. Carlo was on the ground. Not dead, I realized, but injured, trying to crawl to better cover. On 3, Viviana whispered. We shoot the ones at the door. Give Matteo the opening he needs. I raised my gun. My hands were shaking so badly I wasn't sure I could hit anything, but I planted my feet like Viviana was doing, tried to steady my breathing. 1. The attackers were focused on Matteo, confident in their superior numbers. 2. I centered the gun sight on the closest man's back, told myself he would kill me if I didn't kill him first. 3. I pulled the trigger. The recoil shocked me, the sound impossibly loud even through the body armor's ear protection. But my shot hit. Not a clean kill, but enough to make the attacker stagger, turning toward us in surprise. Viviana's shots were surgical. 2 men down before they could react. Matteo used the distraction perfectly. He was up and moving, weapon blazing, dropping attackers with terrifying efficiency. Within seconds, the study was secured. Nonna, what the hell are you doing? Matteo's voice was furious even as he quickly checked our armor, our weapons. Saving your life, apparently. Viviana was already reloading. The doctor is in the kitchen. He has Lucia's phone. He knows about the safe room. Matteo's expression went absolutely lethal. Carlo, can you move? Give me a weapon. Carlo's voice was pained but determined. East Wing is still compromised, Viviana reported, monitoring her phone. Apparently, she had access to the security system remotely. But they're retreating. Your little display convinced them this wasn't going to be easy. They'll regroup and come back stronger. Matteo checked his weapon, winced at the movement. His shoulder was bad. We need to end this now. Where's Mitchell? I checked the phone Viviana handed me, pulling up the kitchen feed. Still there. He's talking to someone. We watched as Mitchell's lips moved. Then another figure entered the frame. Detective Chen. Not a hostage, not bait, a collaborator. Chen was talking animatedly with Mitchell, gesturing toward different parts of the house on the blueprint, planning their next move. Son of a bitch, Matteo breathed. The detective was in on it from the beginning. So the police showing up at my apartment was theater. To force you to run to me, to get you inside this house where they could monitor you through your phone. His jaw clenched. This whole thing has been a setup, from the moment we walked into that bistro. But how did they know we'd be there? The question hung between us. Then Viviana's face went pale. The necklace. Someone's been tracking the necklace. My hand flew to the pendant, and I felt it for the first time. A slight irregularity in the rose's petals. Not a design flaw, something added. It's bugged, I whispered. Matteo moved fast, yanking the necklace from my throat. The chain broke, the pendant falling into his palm. He smashed it against his desk, and there, embedded in the ruby, was a tiny transmitter. 23 years, he said quietly. They've known where you were for 23 years. Every school, every home, every moment. They were just waiting for the right time. To do what? On the phone screen, Mitchell smiled directly at the camera, and Detective Chen pulled out a device that looked an awful lot like a detonator. Mateo, I said urgently. What's in the East Wing now? What room? His face drained of color. The armory, where we keep the explosion ripped through the house with the force of hell itself, and everything went dark. Chapter 8. Truth in the ashes, I came to in Mateo's arms. He was carrying me through smoke and debris, his face smudged with ash, his shoulder still bleeding but his grip iron strong. Behind us, what remained of the East Wing burned with an orange glow that made my eyes water. With me, Lucia, stay with me. His voice came through the ringing in my ears. I tried to speak, but my throat was raw from smoke. Don't talk. Just hold on. He was moving fast, navigating through destruction with certainty, born of desperation. I caught glimpses of the house, shattered windows, collapsed walls, bodies of the attackers who'd been caught in the blast, and standing in the garden, silhouetted against the flames, were Dr. Leonard Mitchell and Detective Chendot Mateo set me down behind the fountain, positioning himself between us and them. Viviana appeared from somewhere, her face pale but her hands steady, checking me for injuries with professional efficiency. Nothing broken, she confirmed. Just concussed. Where's Carlo? I managed to croak. Alive. Outside with the backup team. Mateo never took his eyes off the two men watching us. The explosion was bigger than they expected. Killed most of their own men. Good, I said, and meant it. Mitchell started walking toward us, Detective Chen following a step behind. Neither seemed concerned about Mateo's gun pointed at them. That's far enough, Mateo called out. Mitchell stopped at a conversational distance. Up close, I could see the family resemblance to Linda. Same sharp features, same calculating eyes. But where Linda had shown me kindness, Mitchell's gaze held only cold assessment. Mateo Salvatore, Mitchell said pleasantly. We finally meet properly. I've heard so much about you. The feeling isn't mutual. I don't waste time learning about dead men. Confident. I like that. Your father was confident too, right up until the cancer ate him alive. Mitchell smiled. Did you know he called for Isabella at the end? And for baby Lucia. Broke my sister's heart, hearing him beg for ghosts. I pushed to my feet despite Viviana's restraining hand. Linda was your sister. Ah, Lucia. Or do you prefer Arya? Mitchell turned that calculating gaze on me. My sister did grow fond of you, you know. That wasn't part of the plan. She was supposed to keep you fed and hidden, nothing more. But Linda always was too soft. You paid her to raise me. I paid her to keep you alive until you were useful. Which you now are, thanks to your dramatic reunion with your long-lost brother. His tone mocked us both. That trust fund has been my retirement plan for over 2 decades. I'm not about to let some genetic sentimentality get in the way. You killed your own sister, Viviana said quietly. Linda died of cancer 2 years ago. Yes, but cancer doesn't usually progress that aggressively. What did you do, Leonard? Poison her treatment? Something flickered in Mitchell's expression. The first real emotion I'd seen. Linda was going to talk. After all those years staying quiet, taking the money, playing her role perfectly, she grew a conscience. Said she wanted to tell Lucia the truth before she died. Make peace with God. He shook his head. I couldn't allow that. The words hit me like a physical blow. You killed her because she wanted to tell me who I was? I accelerated her inevitable demise. There's a difference. I wanted to scream. Wanted to hurt him the way he'd hurt me. But Mateo's hand found mine, his grip steadying me, reminding me to think. You set the fire, Mateo said. Not a question. 23 years ago, yes, though Marco De Luca's kidnapping plot did provide excellent cover. Mitchell seemed pleased with himself. Isabella was never supposed to be there. She was meant to be at the hospital with your father that night. He'd had another threatening letter. We'd planned for her to have security. But she came back early because Lucia had a fever. Wrong place, wrong time. You burned my mother alive. Mateo's voice was deadly soft. I needed everyone to think Lucia died in the fire. A shooting could have left questions, evidence, problems. But a fire hot enough to destroy a body? Mitchell shrugged. Your mother was collateral damage, though I will admit, her screaming was unfortunate. Mateo moved so fast I almost missed it. One moment he was beside me, the next he had Mitchell by the throat, slamming him against the fountain with brutal force. Mateo, no. Detective Chen shouted, reaching for his weapon. Go ahead, Viviana said calmly. She had her own gun trained on Chen. Draw it. Give me an excuse. Chen froze. Mateo's hands tightened around Mitchell's throat. You made me listen to my mother burn. I was 13 years old, and I heard her screaming for my sister while you turned her into ashes. And now you'll kill me and prove you're exactly the monster everyone says you are. Mitchell gasped out. Perfect. Everything according to plan. That made Mateo hesitate. What? Why do you think I came here personally? Why detonate the bomb when I could have done it remotely? Mitchell's smile was strained but triumphant. Because I needed witnesses. Chen here is wearing a camera. Everything you've done today, killing my men, threatening me, it's all been recorded. Evidence that Mateo Salvatore is a violent criminal who can't be trusted with a $50 million trust fund. Chen pulled back his jacket, showing the small camera pinned there. You're done, Salvatore. I've got enough to put you away for life, and with you in prison, control of Lucia's trust falls to her next legal guardian. He smiled. That would be Dr. Mitchell, her court-appointed psychiatrist. You think you're clever, Mateo said quietly. He released Mitchell, stepped back. You orchestrated this entire confrontation, expecting me to lose control and give you the ammunition you needed. Did it work? Mitchell straightened his collar. You did just assault me on camera. In defense of my family, on my property, against an intruder who murdered my mother and confessed to it on that same camera. Mateo's smile was cold. But thank you for the confession. It was very thorough. Mitchell's expression shifted. What? Did you really think we weren't recording too? Viviana gestured to the garden's ornate light posts. Everyone contains a camera and microphone. Has since Lucia disappeared. We've recorded every word you've said. Chen reached for his weapon now, but Viviana's shot took him in the leg. He went down screaming. The detective will live, she said calmly. Unfortunately for him, Mitchell tried to run. Mateo caught him in 3 steps, taking him down with professional efficiency. Within seconds, Mitchell was on the ground, Mateo's knee in his back, hands zip-tied. You're going to tell me everything, Mateo said quietly. Everyone involved. Every account you set up, every lie you told. And then you're going to spend whatever life you have left in a cell, knowing my mother's screams are waiting for you in hell. You can't prove any of this, Mitchell spat. The recordings won't hold up in court. I'll claim coercion, duress. I'm not taking you to court. Mateo's voice was soft, almost gentle. I'm taking you to my warehouse, and by the time I'm done with you, you'll beg me to turn you over to the police. Sirens wailed in the distance. Real ones this time. Backup's here, Viviana confirmed. Local police, not Chen's corrupt friends. I called them 20 minutes ago with an anonymous tip about an attempted home invasion. Mateo stood, hauling Mitchell up with him. Get him in the car. Make sure Chen doesn't bleed out. We need him talking too. As his men moved in to handle the prisoners, Mateo turned to me. His face was a mess of ash and blood. His shoulder clearly needed medical attention, but his eyes held mine with an intensity that made my chest tight. I almost lost you again, he said quietly. 23 years I searched, and 10 minutes after finding you, someone tries to blow you up. You saved me. The words felt inadequate. You've been saving me since the moment you walked into that bistro. His hand came up, cupping my face with a gentleness that contrasted sharply with the violence I'd just witnessed. You're my sister, Lucia. Saving you isn't heroic. It's just what family does. Family, I tested the word. It felt foreign and right all at once. I've never had that before. Not really. You have it now. His thumb brushed away ash on my cheek. Whether you want it or not, whether you trust it or not. You're a Salvatore. That means something in this world. It means people will always be trying to kill me? Probably. But it also means you'll never face them alone. The sirens were getting closer. Reality was about to intrude on this moment. Mateo, I said urgently. The necklace. My mother's necklace. It's destroyed. His expression softened. The pendant is gone. But the chain? He reached into his pocket, pulled out the broken gold chain. This can be repaired, and I'll find you a new pendant. Something that actually belonged to her, not something with a tracking device. I took the chain, the gold still warm from his body heat. It felt like an anchor, like a promise. "Thank you," I whispered. "For everything. Thank me when this is over." He turned toward his approaching men. "We still have a lot of questions to answer. About Marco De Luca's involvement. About who else knew the truth. About how deep this conspiracy goes. But we'll answer them together?" He looked back at me, and for the first time since I'd met him, Matteo Salvatore smiled. "Really smiled. Together," he confirmed. "That's what family means." And as the police cars pulled up, as paramedics rushed to tend our wounds, as the house smoldered behind us, I realized something fundamental had shifted. I'd come to this city as Aria Mitchell, nobody, orphan, invisible. I was leaving this day as Lucia Salvatore, and that changed everything. Chapter 9. Burn Marks and Beginnings. 3 weeks later, I stood in the rebuilt East Wing, watching sunlight stream through new windows onto fresh paint and restored woodwork. The Salvatore family had resources I was still learning to comprehend. The explosion that should have taken months to repair had been cleared, rebuilt, and refinished in 21 days. Money, apparently, could work miracles when you had enough of it. "You're up early," Matteo's voice came from the doorway. I turned to find him leaning against the frame, dressed casually in dark jeans and a fitted t-shirt. His shoulder was still bandaged beneath the fabric, but he moved without the stiffness that had marked the first week after our battle. "Couldn't sleep," I admitted. "The nightmares are getting better, but they don't disappear." He moved into the room, coming to stand beside me at the window. "I still dream about the fire, about hearing my mother scream and not being able to reach her." We stood in comfortable silence. Over the past 3 weeks, we'd developed a rhythm. Part siblings recovering lost time, part allies learning to trust. The DNA test had been undeniable, but DNA didn't create the bond we were building. That came from late-night conversations, shared meals, and the simple act of choosing each other every day. "Mitchell's talking," Matteo said eventually. "The prosecutor says we have enough to put him away for life. Multiple counts of murder, conspiracy, attempted murder, fraud, and Detective Chen, singing like a canary. Turns out he wasn't a real detective at all. Mitchell faked his credentials, placed him in the department 2 years ago as insurance." Matteo's jaw clenched. "They were planning this move for a while. Once Linda got sick, Mitchell accelerated the timeline. I touched the spot where the necklace used to rest. Matteo had replaced it as promised. A new pendant with a photo of Isabella holding infant me, encased in protective crystal. No tracking devices this time, just a mother's love frozen in silver and glass. "What happens now?" I asked. "With the trust fund, with everything?" "That's actually why I was looking for you." He pulled an envelope from his pocket. "Your trust fund is now fully under your control. $53 million after interest. The lawyers need your signature on about 1,000 documents, but it's yours." The number still didn't feel real. 3 weeks ago, I'd been living paycheck to paycheck. Now I was wealthier than I could comprehend. "I don't know what to do with that kind of money," I admitted. "You'll learn. Viviana's already planning to teach you about investments and charitable foundations." His smile was slight, but genuine. "She's enjoying having someone to mentor again." Viviana had become my anchor in this strange new world. She taught me about the family history, the legitimate businesses that made up the Salvatore empire, and the darker truths about the world we inhabited. Never sugarcoating, never infantilizing, just honest education about what it meant to be a Salvatore. "There's something else," Matteo continued. His tone shifted, becoming more serious. "The district attorney wants to meet with you. About testifying. Against Mitchell and others. The investigation has uncovered a network of corruption. Judges, police officers, city officials all connected to various family operations. Not just ours. Turns out Mitchell wasn't working alone. He had backing from the Rossi family." The name made me tense. The same family who'd sent the cleaners, the fake detective, the men who'd attacked us. "They wanted access to the trust fund?" I asked. "They wanted leverage over me. With control of your money, Mitchell could have blackmailed our entire family, forced us into disadvantageous positions." Matteo's hand clenched into a fist. "The Rossis have been trying to muscle into our territory for years. Using you was just their latest strategy. Is it over? Are they still a threat?" The men who attacked us are dead or arrested. The Rossi leadership claims they knew nothing about Mitchell's plan, that he acted independently. His tone made it clear what he thought of that claim. But without proof of their involvement, my hands are tied. So we're just supposed to accept that they tried to kill us and move on? Welcome to our world. His smile was grim. This is how it works. They test boundaries, we push back, everyone pretends to follow rules that barely exist. It's exhausting and endless and exactly what I grew up with. I studied his profile, the sharp line of his jaw, the permanent tension in his shoulders, the weariness in his eyes that made him look older than his 36 years. Do you ever wish you could leave? Just walk away from all of it? Every day. The admission surprised me, but it's not that simple. I have responsibilities, people who depend on me, businesses that employ thousands. Walking away would create a power vacuum that would get people killed. That's not a life. That's a prison. Maybe. He turned to face me fully. But it's the prison I chose. And now that you're here, I can't regret it. Finding you was worth every sacrifice. Emotion clogged my throat. I'm glad I found you too. Even with the murders and explosions and death threats. He laughed. Actual laughter that transformed his face. When you put it that way, I'm amazed you stayed. Where else would I go? Back to my studio apartment and waitressing? I shook my head. This is my family now. For better or worse. Definitely worse by most standards. His expression sobered. Lucia, I need you to understand something. Being a Salvatore comes with privileges, yes. Money, power, protection. But it also comes with danger. There will always be someone plotting, testing, trying to find weaknesses. You'll need to learn to defend yourself, to see threats coming, to make hard decisions. Are you trying to scare me away? I'm trying to give you a choice. A real one, not the forced decision you made when fleeing from Chen. He took my hands, his grip warm and solid. You can take your trust fund and leave. Set up a new identity. Live somewhere safe and normal. I'll make sure you're protected, that you have everything you need. Or you can stay, learn this world, become truly part of this family. But if you stay, Lucia, you need to understand there's no halfway. You'll be a Salvatore in every sense, the good and the terrible. I looked into those storm gray eyes and saw the truth there. He was offering me freedom, the very thing he couldn't have for himself. But freedom without him, without Viviana, without this strange, violent, loving family I'd found, seemed like the loneliest thing in the world. I'm staying, I said firmly. Teach me, show me how to survive in your world. I'm done running from who I am. Something fierce and proud blazed in his expression. Then we start tomorrow. Self-defense training, business education, everything you need to know. Tomorrow? I raised an eyebrow. Not today? Today is Sunday. Family dinner. His smile returned. Viviana's making risotto, and she'll never forgive us if we're late. We walked through the restored house together, toward the dining room, where I could already hear Viviana directing the staff with military precision. As we walked, Matteo's hand found mine, and the simple contact felt like everything I'd been missing my entire life. I'd spent 23 years searching for belonging. For home. For someone who saw me, truly saw me, and chose me anyway. I'd found it in the most unlikely place, in a world of violence and power, with a brother who killed to protect, and a grandmother who taught me how to shoot while making me coffee. This wasn't the life I'd imagined. It was harder, more dangerous, more complicated, but it was mine. And as we entered the dining room to find Viviana waiting with a smile, 3 places set at a table designed for 12, I realized something fundamental. Family wasn't about blood or DNA or legally certified documents. It was about who stayed when the world burned down around you, who fought for you, who chose you, who made space at their table and called you home. I was Lucia Elena Salvatore, and I was finally home. Chapter 10. Ashes and Promises 6 months later. I stood in the private cemetery where my mother was buried. The headstone was simple despite the family's wealth. Isabella Salvatore, beloved wife and mother. The dates of her short life, nothing about how she'd died, or what she'd sacrificed, or the 23 years of grief her death had caused. I brought her roses, I said quietly, placing the bouquet at the base of the stone. Matteo said they were her favorite. Viviana stood beside me, her small hand resting on my arm. She would have loved you so much, child. You have her strength. I wish I remembered her. Memory isn't everything. You carry her in other ways. In your laugh, your stubbornness, the way you move through the world expecting it to be beautiful, despite all evidence to the contrary. Viviana squeezed my arm gently. Isabella was like that too, an optimist trapped in our dark world. Over the past 6 months I'd transformed. The scared waitress who'd worn that necklace without knowing its significance was gone, replaced by someone harder, wiser, but not broken. I'd learned to shoot, to negotiate, to read people's intentions in their body language. I'd sat through countless business meetings, absorbing the legitimate empire my father had built alongside the darker elements that couldn't be separated from it. I'd become a Salvatore in every sense that mattered. "Are you ready?" Viviana asked softly. I nodded. Today was the day we'd been working toward. The official transfer of my trust fund into operational accounts. The legal recognition of my identity. The press conference where I'd be introduced to the world as the lost Salvatore heir. Matteo was waiting by the car, dressed in a perfect charcoal suit, looking every inch the powerful businessman the public knew. But I saw past that now. Saw the brother who still had nightmares, who checked my room every night to make sure I was safe, who'd taught me to defend myself with a patience that belied his usual intensity. "You look nervous," he observed as we drove toward the city. 50 reporters are about to ask me questions about the worst night of my life. Nervous doesn't cover it. You've handled worse. His confidence in me was absolute. Mitchell's trial testimony, the Rossi family attempting that hostile takeover last month, that dinner with the mayor where Senator Brooks tried to intimidate you. I smiled at the memory. I did handle that well, didn't I? You made him apologize for implying you were just a pretty face playing dress-up. Viviana was so proud she cried. The press conference was held at the Salvatore building, a gleaming tower of steel and glass in the heart of the financial district. Cameras lined the lobby. Reporters jostled for position. This was the story they'd been chasing for months. The miraculous return of Lucia Salvatore. The murder mystery solved. The family reunited. They didn't know the full truth, of course. Mitchell's trial had revealed some details, but we'd kept the worst of it private. The public knew Isabella had died protecting me, that I'd been kidnapped and raised under a false identity, that my return had uncovered corruption in the police department. They didn't know about the fire, the screaming, the 23 years of calculated manipulation. Some truths were too dark for public consumption. "Ready?" Matteo asked as we stood backstage. I adjusted the necklace, my mother's photo pendant catching the light. "As I'll ever be." He took my hand, squeezed once. "You're not alone up there. I'll be right beside you." The press conference went exactly as planned. Matteo spoke first, giving the official story with the kind of commanding presence that made reporters sit up straighter. Then he introduced me, and the cameras flashed like lightning as I stepped to the podium. "Thank you all for coming," I began, my voice steady despite my racing heart. 6 months ago, I was Aria Mitchell, working as a waitress and trying to pay rent. Today, I'm Lucia Salvatore, reunited with my family and learning to honor the legacy my parents left behind. The questions came rapid fire, about my memories, about Linda Mitchell, about how it felt to be rich, about my plans for the future. I answered them all with the poise Viviana had drilled into me, deflecting the invasive ones, giving sound bites for the respectful ones, always projecting the image we'd crafted, strong, grateful, ready to serve the family businesses and philanthropic efforts. An hour later, it was done. The reporters filed out, the cameras stopped rolling, and I could finally breathe. "You were perfect," Viviana declared, pulling me into a fierce hug. "She was better than perfect," Matteo corrected. "She was authentic. They'll love her." "I don't care if they love me," I said honestly. "I just want them to stop digging into our lives." "That will never happen." He loosened his tie, looking relieved to be done with the performance. "But at least now they have the story they wanted. It should buy us some peace." That evening we had dinner at the house, just the three of us, the way we did most nights now. The dining room that had seemed so enormous and intimidating 6 months ago now felt like home. After the meal, Matteo asked me to join him in the study. He closed the door, poured 2 glasses of wine, and handed me one. "I have something for you." He placed a leather folder on the desk between us. Inside were legal documents, business papers, things I'd learned to recognize over the past months. "What is this?" "Your shares in the family businesses. 25% of everything. The legitimate operations, the real estate holdings, the investments. You're now an equal partner with Viviana and me in the Salvatore empire." He met my eyes. "You've earned it, Lucia. Not because of blood or a trust fund, but because of who you've become, how you've fought to claim your place here." I stared at the documents, understanding the weight of what he was offering. This wasn't just money or power, it was trust. Real trust, the kind earned through 6 months of proving myself every single day. I don't know what to say. Say you'll stay, that you'll help me build something better than what our father left us. Something Isabella would be proud of. His voice roughened. "I can't do this alone anymore, Lucia. I've been alone for so long, carrying this weight by myself. Having you here, having family again, it's changed everything." I moved around the desk, and he stood to meet me. For a moment, we just looked at each other. 2 people bound by blood, by trauma, by choice. Brother and sister, partners, family. Then I pulled him into a hug, fierce and certain. "I'm staying," I said against his shoulder. "I'm not going anywhere. We're in this together." His arms came around me, holding tight. "Together," he agreed. We stood like that for a long moment. 2 survivors of a tragedy that had tried to destroy us both, now standing strong and united. When we finally pulled apart, I signed the documents, made it official, became not just a Salvatore by blood, but a Salvatore by choice. That night, I stood at my bedroom window, looking out over the city lights. Somewhere out there were people who would try to hurt us, to take what we'd built, to tear us down. The Rossis were still plotting. Other families were always testing boundaries. The world we inhabited would never be truly safe. But I wasn't afraid, because I'd learned something essential over these 6 months. Strength didn't come from avoiding darkness. It came from walking through it and refusing to let it destroy you. I touched my mother's pendant, felt the weight of her memory and her sacrifice. "I'm going to make you proud," I whispered to the photo. "I'm going to take everything they tried to steal and turn it into something beautiful. Something worth what you gave up to save me." A knock on my door interrupted my thoughts. Matteo checking on me one last time before bed, a ritual he'd never broken in 6 months.